Good evening and welcome to the Canadian Football Fanatics weekly show. Back at it again, Wednesday, 6 o'clock with the boys, talking some Canadian football. Gotta love it. Excited to talk some football, man. Labor Day has come and gone already. It's crazy how the time has flown by. All this anticipation building up to Labor Day, touchdown Pacific, and has already, flown by. And we had a terrific week of CFL football. All the games are great, and I'm excited to hear what the boys thought of the week. So, as always, joined by my main man, Blake. Blake, thanks for joining us. I know you're at work and battling through a little bit of the last of your shift. So, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it was definitely a good week. You and I shot some good content at Touchdown Pacific, so that was very fun. And then I know we're gonna bring Coach here in a minute, but we had the Riders and Bombers game, and then the Elks and Stamps, and even the Ticats beating the Argos for the second time this year.
Yeah, man, it was a great week of CFL football. Just great entertainment and a must-watch weekend. I think even the casual fans usually come out for Labor Day, all the Labor Day classics and whatnot. And it was cool to be a part of it for the first time. The BC Lions being able to be kick off the Labor Day weekend was a lot of fun. I'm sure we'll get into it in a little bit here, but as you mentioned, Coach is already waiting for us. Feel like he's a little decked out. He's got some special occasion wear. But Coach, how you doing? Thanks for joining us.
Oh, this weekend was amazing, but for one game, just whoa. How y'all?
Oh, we doing good, Coach. We're doing
Doing
really good.
good.
But
We're
we'll get
we're
into that.
surviving.
We are surviving, man. We're getting through the week. I shouldn't be complaining too much. It's a short week, but we're getting through, boys. And I don't want to keep Coach waiting too long. So let's get into it. Last week's action, 3-minute drill, as always, fellas. Recapping last week's action in the CFL, starting with Touchdown Pacific, which Blake and I were lucky to be at. BC Lions were able to bump the slump, end their 5-game losing streak. Got out to a very fast start, 31 first half points, and were able to, I believe it was a quiet second half for both teams, only 12 points combined. I believe a touchdown for each. Um, and it was just an overall good experience to be there. I'm sure Blake will touch on it a little bit more. And from the people that I was kind of talking to, I think it helped that the Lions were able to get out to an early start. Offensively, it was an exciting game for those that were in Victoria and were able to witness some of the action. Just a great game overall. If you were a BC Lions fan, I'm sure maybe if Shane was joining us here tonight, he'd have a different perspective or different say. But was just an awesome experience being down there. Was capped off with a nice big BC Lions win. They end their streak, 5-game losing streak, no more. Back to 6-6. Unfortunately, we'll get into the next game now with the Bombers winning. BC still in second place, but the Winnipeg Blue Bombers were able to escape with another victory. Once again, moving to 6-6, like I mentioned on the season, and it was without a scare. Obviously, Zach Caleros left the game in the first half. Chris Shubler finished the game, but in the dying seconds, Saskatchewan, I believe, recovered their onside kick. Were able to get in reasonable range. I know it was a 60-yarder, but Lawler was just, I believe, maybe 5 or 6 yards short of making that field goal. It was right down the middle. And it was unfortunate that Saskatchewan wasn't able to push that game to overtime because that was an absolute classic. And I think for me, I'm interested to hear what Coach has to say. But I think where that game kind of changed, I know it stayed close for a majority after this incident happened, but the Mario Alford fumble, I think, kind of turned the game on its head a little bit there. I believe that was with a few minutes to go in the first half. And like I said, a long way to go still with 2 quarters, but that kind of just, I feel like, put the energy off for Saskatchewan early on, and was like a dark cloud, I guess, over their game, and ultimately cost them with that 7 points being scored for Winnipeg there on the muff punt return. So Saskatchewan, I believe, now 1-6-1 in their last 7 games. Winnipeg takes over first place in the Western Division. How times have changed from Saskatchewan getting off to a fast start, Winnipeg slow start, and now the roles are reversed. And still, I believe, 7 games to go, but we will see. And next, the doubleheaders on Monday. As Blake mentioned, Hamilton was able to pull off a victory over Toronto. And man, I got to say, of someone that was very critical of Bo Levi Mitchell coming into the season, he has turned back the clock in a little bit. I believe leading the CFL in both passing yards, touchdowns now, and has been having a good season. I think it's been a little bit overshined by Hamilton's struggles. Unfortunately, they're not being able to get some of these wins. Has kind of downplayed the success and the great season I believe on the coach has. I think being able to be on the main stage like that Labor Day Classic. I believe he's now 7-0 on Labor Days, which is a crazy stat as well. And need to be playing on Labor Days. The guy's obviously hot. But to end the weekend, we had the Calgary Stampeders falling to the Edmonton Elks, 35-20. MVT. Got to take my cap off to him as well. A guy that I've been critical on very much in the past, and he's balled out since he's kind of taken over again in Edmonton in this game. I believe he was close to 500 yards. Was feeding, Tevin Jones, Geno Lewis getting involved. What a play that was! The Geno Lewis fumble. Tevin Jones picks it up, hits the deuces there at the 50-yard line, gets caught, tracked down at the 1-yard line. What a play and what a call by Dustin Nielsen as well. The what is happening? His little patented saying. But just like I said, to recap the weekend, a terrific. Uh, I would say 4 games. I know that the BC Ottawa was a little bit of a blowout. Maybe if you were an Ottawa supporter, it was tough to stay locked in. But just a great entertainment weekend, and excited to talk and hear what the boys have to say. So, Coach, we won't keep you any longer. Like I mentioned, Saskatchewan falling, I believe, 1-6-1 in the last 7 games. Get it off your chest. What do you got to say?
First, I'm gonna start it off by saying a Jay-Z quote. What more can I say? You didn't heard it all. It's every week. It's the same shit. The same shit that shoots us in the foot like Cheddar Bob and 8 Mile. We just constantly screw ourselves. But it's also, I don't want to, I keep hearing people talk about, oh, Brett Lothar missed these field goals. Look, it's not individual. It's a team situation. There are many times where this offense just stalls out. It stalls out like a Datsun 210, and it's just putting. We have all this firepower, and we just can't seem to put enough points on the board. We should be putting up at least 30 to 35 points a game and outscoring teams with all the weapons we have. And yet and statistically, we're a middle of the pack offense. We're a middle of the pack. It's frustrating to watch. Now, people say, oh, Mario's fumbled. Okay, you can say that, but still the team has to play. The defense is out there for a long periods of time. They're tired, but you still got to drop your nuts and play. We're giving up plays up the seam that we shouldn't be giving up normally. It's a team thing. It's a team thing, and I'm so beyond frustrated. And people get upset. Oh, you can't talk about the Riders, and you can't say about the Riders. No, you play like shit. You play like shit, and that's what it is. If you have success, I'm gonna praise you. If you play bad, I'm gonna say you play like shit. And we've been playing like shit. 1-6-1. What more can what's going on with us? I don't know. I'm beyond frustrated.
Yeah, Coach. I'm curious before I get Blake's kind of thoughts here. Do you think, or I guess maybe not, do you think I should rephrase this? How much of it do you think, as I mentioned, Saskatchewan gets off to a very hot start with a Corey Mace led team for the first time? Do you think maybe it's to do with, teams being able to have a little bit of film on them now and kind of understand what they're wanting to do out there, what they're wanting to implement? I know offensively it's kind of, it's been similar with, Trevor Harris and what they like to do with the quick passing game, stuff like that. But how much of it do you think is maybe teams having a chance to prepare for them now, watching a little bit of tape now since we've seen, 13 weeks of Corey Mace led by Saskatchewan now?
I'm glad you asked that question because I was thinking about that about 10 minutes before we started recording. I've watched every single game back, and I can tell you, tendency-wise, where they're going to go. Stop here, whip here, go here, boom, we're going to try the skinny post right here. You can tell when we get in certain situations on the field, down a distance, what we're going to do. We've been predictable for 3 years. Nothing has changed offensively to where, the numbers have changed as far as the players. We've got this is the most talent we've had offensively in a while. And we're just calling the same bull jive week after week. At some point, you got to be creative. At some point, you got to open up the playbook. At some point, you got to get the ball in your playmakers' hands. But we got so many guys. Who is our playmakers? Who are we going to get the ball to here? Who's our red zone threat? Who's our second down specialist? We're mixed. And other thing we forgot to mention was the offensive line. They are. I will not knock the offensive line. They are trying their damnedest. The injuries are just kicking our ass right now. We have Micah out there playing on the offensive line. But when you're running a zone blocking scheme, you better have some chemistry. You can't just go out there and be like, oh, we're going to run a zone blocking scheme. No. It's going to take some time. They said he took some reps, but it's going to take more than reps. That starts in training camp.
Yeah, but before Blake goes, man, what a tip my cap to Micah Johnson. I believe he's tied for the league lead in sacks and is out there putting on 57, playing offensive guard there last week for the Riders. Just an absolute, and I believe he must be pushing 36 years old, out there doing that, leading the league in sacks, tied for the league in sacks, I believe, with 5 this season. Just a phenomenal season so far for Micah, from an individual standpoint. But Blake, I guess if you want to jump in here, buddy, any thoughts from Winnipeg and the Riders game?
Yeah, no, Cole. I completely agree with you that the game changed on the Mario Alford fumble. And I was listening to a podcast that Coach is going to be familiar with, the Piffles podcast earlier today. And they kind of said the same thing, that like Mario is not the same returner that he once was. He's not the dangerous returner that he was. He's made a couple of these mistakes earlier this year. And it's like, I agree with Coach. Like, yeah, you got to go out and play the game. But at the time, it was a 1-point game. It turned into an 8-point game after that mistake. And shortly after, the Riders gifted the Bombers, whether you agree or not, I do, that it was partially gifted by the referees. But after that, the Bombers were gifted another touchdown. All of a sudden, you go into halftime, and it's a 29-14 lead. And the entire second half, the Riders have to battle uphill to the point where they need to make a 2-point convert that they don't make. And then they're asking their kicker to kick a 60-yard field goal.
After Trevor threw an interception, which did get called back.
Yeah.
We got the ball back. It's like, what are we doing? We're putting pressure on our kicker, which you do got to understand. He's got to make, but 60 yards and his max is what, 57, 56?
Well, man, I believe he hit his first 50-yarder that earlier in the game, I believe, of the season. So like it would have been a tough. It's a tough kick either way. You'd like to see him make that, but it's a tough kick, 60 yards for sure. What's the record? I believe 68, 65, something like that.
65, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, would have been a hell of a. It would have just added to the drama that much more. It would have added to the classic that game was. If he was able to pull that off, but I believe only Sergio Castillo's hit a 60-yarder this season.
2 of them.
2 of them.
Yeah, that's because the Bombers' offense stinks.
They really do. Statistically, they do.
That defense, though, man, that defense is flying around for them and keeping them in a lot of these games. But to get off this game, boys, I guess any other thoughts that jump out to you, Blake, from last week's action?
Yeah. Do you guys finally agree that Jake Maier sucks? Like, he had almost he had almost 3 weeks off, 18 full days. And what does he do? He came back and he threw 4 interceptions. The Stampeders are not going to go anywhere ever with Jake Maier as their quarterback. End of discussion.
Can I respond?
Go ahead.
I chose black people this week, so I'm good.
It ain't my cousin no more.
Yeah, I don't know him like that.
But I think I'd love to talk about that game, actually, to kind of honestly skip over Hamilton, Toronto a little bit. I think we all agree. Fuck Chad Kelly. We'll end it at that. Hamilton getting a win is nice. And like I said, I can't credit Bo Levi Mitchell anymore for how well he's played this season. But Edmonton and Calgary, man. Edmonton is kind of almost somewhat made up for how disastrous they started their season. I feel like getting rid of Chris Jones has there's been a stank gotten rid of that kind of that building, and that
Shocking.
it's like almost a breath of fresh air has been into that building. And I know coach has been super happy for these two guys. Obviously, Blake and I are as well, being BC Lions alum, but the job that Jarius Jackson and G. Simon have done here in the last month of the season, kind of turning around that program, and getting them back on the right track. I think looking at their schedule, man, like they could finish 9-9, 8-10, something like that, and like I'm sure coach is hoping that Saskatchewan's going to turn around, but if they don't, like they have I think they have a shot, and even BC's right there as well for that kind of that second 2-3 seed. And I shouldn't even get far on myself. I think 1 through 5 is separated by, what is it, 4 points right now, 2 wins. So the slide could be real for whoever gets hot right now or whoever doesn't get hot. So, coach, I guess what do you got to say for what Edmonton's kind of doing right now?
Well, to put it like this, man. Edmonton. Remember, I think it was like a week or so ago, we talked about Montreal and saying that this might be the greatest team ever. If Edmonton puts it together, if Edmonton stays on track, we might be seeing the greatest comeback ever
One of them.
on some real shit. Like to fire the head coach, you were 0-7, and then 0-6, 0-7, and then all of a sudden you guys turn this around. It's beautiful to watch them play. They look like they're having fun. The defense is flying around. They know their assignments. They know their alignment and assignment. Nobody's out of place. Everybody's doing their job. And that's something that they lacked with the Chris Jones regime. With Chris Jones, it's beautiful to watch. I'm still the jury is still. My jury was out on MBT, but he shut me the hell up. Almost 500 yards passing. The running game got to be there though. Are you gonna go with Kevin? Are you gonna go with a 2-back system with Kevin Brown and Javon Leake, or are you going? And they also got the other guy. I forgot his name off the top of my head. He's a monster too. Rakim.
Right. Yeah.
Josh Rankin.
Rankin. There you go. He's nasty. That's three nasty running backs. Only Calgary has a run game like that when they're healthy. So I like what I'm seeing right now, man. Hats off to him, and hey, green and yellow skies right now.
Damn right. Blake, what do you got to say about the Edmonton Elks and what they're doing right now?
Yeah, I think it's incredible. I mean, shocking. Who would have thought that getting rid of Chris Jones would actually help a team? Oh, wait, everybody outside of Edmonton? Like, it's almost a miracle that it took the Elks this long to get rid of him. And literally, as soon as they did, they started winning games. Like, I fully agree with you, Cole. I'm scared as a Lions fan about the Elks, considering they already won the season series against the Lions, thanks to their greater point differential. They still have a couple of games against the Bombers. I believe they play the Riders once or twice more. Like, I tend to agree with Farhan that this might be, and I know it's a 9-team league. I've made fun of this on shows in the past, but I truly believe that if the Elks can continue the way they're playing, they could be a Grey Cup contender come November.
Boom.
Yeah, I think let's like if we look at the remaining schedule Jay puts in here, Calgary twice, Winnipeg, Sask, and then the Argos. So right there, they basically control their own destiny with Calgary twice, Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, and then a Toronto team that who knows how they're going to look. If I'm assuming that's in order. If Toronto's maybe clinched by then, if it's the last week of the season, maybe they're resting, some of the starters, and Edmonton's able to get another win there. I'm not, I don't think it's a hot take to say that they could definitely take both games against Calgary. And you got to probably split Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, which is a fair ask. Don't have to get both those games, but if you can go like 4-1, 5-1 down the stretch, get to like 9, like I said, 9-9, 8-10. I think at worst you're probably going to get, depending, I guess. We'll get into it, I guess, a little bit, maybe on another show or something like that. But if maybe Saskatchewan can their roles reverse from a few years, of going winless after Labor Day. Is it this year that maybe they go undefeated and they start to find a stride and get hot, right? Where, obviously we're hoping that it's BC. It could very well be Saskatchewan. It could be very well Winnipeg, right? It could be very well Edmonton for all we know. So it's going to be interesting to see that the West is 4 points separate all 5 teams. So it's going to be interesting to see with teams having, I believe, outside of BC, basically all their kind of control in their own destiny, facing mostly Western Division opponents. I believe Saskatchewan's remaining schedule is a little bit more Western heavy. Same with Winnipeg, and then BC's is Eastern dominant. So from a BC perspective, I'm hoping you guys beat up on each other and nobody's kind of pulling away. But who knows who it could be? I think Edmonton has definitely controlled their own destiny here down the stretch. So, I guess news and notes, boys. Would have loved to hear Shane maybe go off a little bit more about it and how it's going to affect Ottawa without any kind of answers right away. But obviously, Raquel Armstead
Jamal
got
Morrow.
released. And Ottawa's been. I think Ottawa's fine in the long term because I personally like Drew Brown. They have a nice defense through all 3 levels: defensive line, linebackers, and secondary. Really nice over
They
there.
didn't last week.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. And then their weapons. I like Hardy, Rhymes, a few other guys, but um, I'm curious to see how much this maybe impacts them, and if Drew Brown has to do a little bit more when they've had a run game all year that they've been able to lean on, get them into second and manageable. Drew Brown's had some great games, but he also has had some more mediocre type games where they've leaned on the run game, leaned on that defense. So I'm curious to see how they're able to replace them. I know we've talked a bit about it in previous shows about a certain guy that's in Hamilton that's been a healthy scratch the last month or whatever it's been now. If they were able to pull off something like that, I think that even adds more firepower to Ottawa's lineup offensively. So, I guess what do you guys think about the impact that this will bring to Ottawa on their offense? I'll go to Blake first.
Yeah, I think it was a little surprising, but not too much so. I mean, it's been public knowledge, and even Farhan tweeted after the game, or after Rock Armstead was released on yesterday, I believe it was, that Rock Armstead has had some discipline issues. He was apparently quite animated on the sidelines on Saturday, to the point where multiple times he needed to have teammates come over and calm him down. I think this was kind of building, as Coach, you said in our kind of little group chat yesterday, that Bob Dice wanted to send a message that this isn't unacceptable. And I'm okay with Bob Dice doing this. Like, he's trying to change that culture in Ottawa and being like, we're done being that losing team. Like, that's over. Like, if you're going to have, for lack of a better term, a whiny baby attitude, that's not going to fly here anymore. You're going to be sent home. Like, you're done. Get out. So I'm okay with the Red Blacks part of me doing this. It looks like at the moment Jamal Morrow might slot in for
Yes,
Rock
sir.
Armstead. Whether he's allowed to, or whether he's fit, I should say, to play or not on Thursday, or they're on a bye this week. So actually he should, or
No, they
I
play
have that
Toronto.
right? Yeah, sorry, you're right. They play on Saturday. So whether he's able to play on Saturday or not remains to be seen. But I think that is the most logical explanation as to what is going to happen in terms of replacing Rock Armstead.
Coach, what do you think?
I think Bob Dice made the right decision. Everybody's expendable. And to change the culture, you do have to make moves that, if you're going to show your ass, man, show your ass in the locker room. Like, don't show out in front of everybody when we're already losing by a large margin, and you want to show out. No, bye. To change the culture is tough. But I love Bob. I know I love Bob Dice. He did the right thing. Now, on the other hand, I am very excited for Jamal Morrow to be back. Found a squad. Been in touch with him lately, and man, I'm ready to yell Jamal, because it's time, man. It's time, and he's gonna add something to the offense that I think they've been missing, is that they can move him around. They can flex him out. He can run some routes. He runs it. The ball. His run style is different than Armstead, but you can run different things for him. So very excited for him. But Armstead, man, I just got to get it together.
Yeah, I actually forgot that they, I believe, Morrow's been on their practice roster for, I believe, a week or two, and then got the evaluated to the main roster. So I actually did forgot about that for a second that they had him on the roster now. But I'm interested to see how Ottawa's able to keep ticking. I like their squad, and I think we'll get into who maybe we're picking here this week. But I think they keep on ticking. That was just a blip on the radar. A long 21 whatever week season it is, you're going to have stinkers throughout the year where stuff like that happens. So I think Ottawa's okay. But news and notes, I think that kind of ends things from there. Honestly, not too much news to talk about other than what was on the field last week, which was kind of good action, like I was saying, a good entertainment. But Blake, before we get into our picks, probably maybe we should have done this at the start, but let's talk about our experience at Touchdown Pacific. I will throw it to you. How was your experience at Touchdown Pacific?
Before or after I finally got on to Victoria? Yeah, no. All joking aside, Touchdown Pacific. It was all in all, it was a really great experience. I think you will echo this sentiment, though, Cole. The one thing that I would ask, if the BC Lions are listening, Nick Kowalski, Matt Baker, whoever, if you guys do this in the future, please have some merchandise. Like supposedly there was hats and stuff like that that sold out very quickly, and the beer lineups were also very, very long. Like if you decided that you were going to go for a beer, you were going to miss at least a quarter, maybe even a quarter and a half. But other than that, like what they did with Royal Athletic Park, I don't know the actual capacity normally for baseball, but what they did with Royal Athletic Park to make it over 14,500 was absolutely amazing. The whole thing was done so well by the Lions, and I think it made it just that much better that the Lions were able to get the victory in convincing fashion.
Yeah, man, I echo everything you say. Not only the beer lines, man, you couldn't even get a water. You couldn't even get like a lemonade, which was, on a hot day, especially on our side of the field with no shade. I know there's definitely been a few people, a lot of people, that have been boisterous about this, about not wanting shade by any means, because it's hard to get a little canopy and stuff like that built for temporary stands and stuff like that. But hopefully get a little bit more of that, lines died down a little bit more, make the process easier to go to the concession, stuff like that. Maybe be able to cross over to the other side. From what I heard, um, I don't know if it's the east side or whatever, the other side with the stands. It seemed like their concession lines weren't as long. So I think if you're able to maybe go from side to side, the lines weren't been as long on our side. But other than that, man, merch lines, it was a fantastic day, man. Really hope that they come back in the future and make this a regular occasion. Doesn't have to be on Labor Day every weekend, but hopefully one game a year for the BC Lions from now on the island. I think it'd be a cool thing. Um, and as Jay says right there, it's crazy that they had a basically 3,000 seats stadium into 14 and a half thousand, which is super cool. And it was just a great atmosphere to be a part of. Nice to be that close to the action as well, and just a really enjoyable day overall. So the Lions, fantastic job as always, Martin Doe and everybody that's in the program. Appreciate you guys so much for coming over here, and it was a just awesome time. Day I'll never forget, that's for sure. So I think that's kind of all for news and notes this week. A little bit, like I said, quieter week for news and notes, other than what was on the field this week. So boys, I think we can get into our picks this week, which I'm actually excited to hear what you guys have to say.
I thought you were
Shane's
going to
not.
say you were excited because you did the best last week.
Oh no, well, I mean that could be a reason too. But as you guys can see, Shane's not with us. Shane has put his picks in our chat though, so he will still be um, liable for whatever his record is in the outcome of this week. But let's get into it, fellas. We have BC and Montreal kicking off this week. Super curious to hear what you guys have to say about this one. I'm really excited to catch this game on Friday night. Excited that it's at 4:30 kickoff p.m. or I guess Pacific time out here. Be able to get off work and basically just go home and be able to enjoy the game. I love those type of things where you don't have to kill any time or anything like that. Blake, what are your thoughts, bud?
I think you're going to like this pick, Cole, but I am going to go with the BC Lions to upset the defending Grey Cup champions. I really like what I saw from Nathan Rourke last week. Alex Holland, after we went back and looked, his numbers weren't super great. I believe you said he was like 2 for 7 on targets or something like that, but he found the end zone again. Justin McInnes looked like him old self. Aiden Eberhardt, for the first time in his CFL career, found the end zone. I really like what I see from that Lions offense, and I hope they can continue that, and I think they will. And the Alouettes coming off that bye, we see it all the time where teams kind of come off the bye and they're a little bit slow to begin the game. I think the Lions will take advantage of that, and then they might be able to just barely hang on at the end and win the game.
Yeah, well said. I can't believe you did not mention number 31.
That's a
Oh
shock.
man, he's going back to Montreal.
Well, and he had 170 yards all-purpose last game, man.
I know, I
He's
know.
been on a hot streak, and he's really feeling it right now. I think the Lions need to keep utilizing him and capitalizing on how he's been playing as of late. Because whoever's in at quarterback, it also helps be able to keep the ball in your hands offensively, keep your defense on the sideline. Your strength can stay on the field with William Stanback. He also is chipping in the pass game, 6 catches, 70 odd yards or whatever. I believe it was 68 yards last week. So he's doing it in all facets. He started the game with a big play out of the backfield that kind of set the tone for the BC Lions offensively there in Touchdown Pacific, was able to catch a little swing route out of the backfield, turn it up the sideline. I believe it was maybe a 40-yard play right out of the gate for the Lions to kind of grab hold of momentum, go down there and score on the first possession. William Stanback, for me, man, is hopefully, I think, going to be a big reason on Friday night why the Lions get a victory. But Coach, just to cut to it, I'm obviously taking BC. Shane is already taking BC. Maybe tell us why you're not, or maybe tell us why you agree.
I'm gonna go with Montreal.
Fair enough.
I think
I can't hate it.
I mean, Montreal's going to hit them where it hurts, and that's that front line. They're going to win the trench war. Walter Fletcher's going to have a big game, about over 100, maybe 125 at that minimum. So, ain't no ifs, ands, buts about it. This is going to be a beatdown.
I don't agree with beatdown, but I agree with, I think Montreal could very much win this game. Why I'm going to take BC? I just think it's time for Montreal to have a loss here on the schedule. I think they could maybe match Toronto last year of 16-2, but I don't think they're going 18-1, whatever it may be. I think this is one of those things where you play a tough team that's maybe getting on a hot streak here, and I think BC is able to pull out a close one. I would feel much more confident it was in BC. I think going to Montreal is a tough task, short week, flying across the country into their place where they play very well, very confident. Cody Fajardo is obviously back under center for them as well. And as Coach mentioned, they're going to come after Nathan Rourke, I would imagine, defensively and make it very tough for him all afternoon. So I think that defense for BC needs to capitalize on having a guy like Matthew Betts again. Hopefully he's able to create some pressure, not have that secondary have to cover for so long. And hopefully BC is able to pull out a close one in Montreal. Coach with Montreal, Blake, Shane, and I with BC. Next matchup, we have Toronto traveling to Ottawa. I'll cut to the chase, and I'm going to go with Ottawa. This is an exciting matchup, I think, for Eastern Division fans, both fans of both fan bases, just CFL fans. I think this is going to be a good game, but I have more confidence in Ottawa than I do Toronto. I could see this going either way as well, but I'm going to go with Ottawa. Coach, who do you got?
I'm gonna go with Ottawa. I think this is the game where Drew Brown shows that he can put up some yards. If MBT can put some yards up, match that. That's what I want to see.
Blake?
I am also going to go with Ottawa. It is very clear that while Toronto is a better team with number 12 as their quarterback, I just don't think that the Argos have that same cohesiveness they have last year. I mean, it shows in their 1-1 record, and frankly, they should be 0-2 with Chad Kelly as their starter. I think Ottawa is the better team, and I think they're going to prove that. They're just upset about what happened last week. They got beat down. Like, let's be real about it. They got beat down in Touchdown Pacific. They're not going to be happy about that. And I think Ottawa is going to come out and punch Toronto in the mouth, and they're going to get another home win to strengthen that grip on second in the East.
I think both teams, obviously coming off losses, will be motivated to win. I think, like Blake just mentioned, Ottawa's going to be even more motivated after coming off the game that they just had. Really didn't show up for a majority of that game. I think they're a much better team than shown on at Touchdown Pacific. So I think Ottawa's going to get back on track and keep being them. I'm interested to see, like Coach said, about his boy Jamal Marone, if he can make an impact for them right away. So next game onto the schedule. I'm actually also excited to have a little bit of like NFL style on Saturday. I believe it's a game at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m., and 4 p.m. So all day long, gonna have some football. Should be an exciting day, and can't wait for it. Honestly, there's a hopefully if the matchups live up to how they did last weekend. Some of these should be a good game. So next on the schedule is Saskatchewan and Winnipeg. Now I'm curious where Coach's confidence head down like that doesn't give me much confidence, Coach. Coach, talk to the people. Who you got and why?
Say it, Coach. Say it.
He's got Winnipeg.
I know he does. That's why I want him to say it.
I'm still gonna stick with the Riders.
Okay, fair enough.
I think with coming off of another fucking, I ain't gonna say that. Look, we gotta do something. Okay, this is I'm picking at straws here right now. This is the one where you're going into Winnipeg. You know what happened last year when we went there, 52-7, and even just this past week, 55-6. Excuse me, 3 extra points. Yeah, this game right here might break us. If we drop this one, this might break us. But I'm gonna be confident. I'm trusting that the defense is gonna have to put some points on the board for us. Help the offense a little bit. And try not to get into a pissing match with Winnipeg's offense.
Yeah, Coach. I think I agree with you that this is a game that Saskatchewan needs to get. I think considering how close it is, even if they were to drop this one hypothetically, I think they still have a decent schedule ahead, right? With I look here after Winnipeg this weekend, they play Calgary, Ottawa. Ottawa's going to be a tough game, obviously. Yeah. Edmonton, that's a game you got to win. It's going to be a tough game, but it's a game you got to win. BC, obviously, we I believe split 1-1 now. Game that you could definitely win, and then Calgary to end the year. So I feel like all winnable games. Are they going to be easy? No, but I think you definitely be on life support maybe with a loss to Winnipeg, but still have some hope left. That being said, I'm taking Winnipeg. I think they've just proven that they're, I would say, back, I guess, defensively. Offensively, seems like Zach Claros is going to play after his concussion or whatever he had last week. I believe he took part in practice already this week. And they've just done enough offensively the last, whatever it's been, month of the season, where their defense is shutting the door, making sure they're not giving up too many big plays. And when they do, they'll be able to respond, and they're scoring just in clutch times when they're able to lead last minute drives and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go Winnipeg. Blake, who do you got?
Coach, how long have you been on the show now? Like 6-7 weeks?
6-7 weeks.
How many times have I picked the Riders?
Shit. Never. I can't think of.
What do you mean? I pick them like every week.
And I was gonna say I don't remember either.
I don't remember you ever picking this.
What do you mean? I picked the Riders like almost every week. I picked them last week. I promise.
So have I.
I know, but I'm saying every week they lose. Every single week.
So what you telling me? You gonna go with the blue?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Blue Bombers because as much as you guys call me a Winnipeg hater, and frankly, I will admit I'm a Winnipeg hater, I can't go with the Riders right now. Like, I don't know where the Riders are going. I don't even think they know where they're going. So I have to go with the Blue Bombers. I think, as they've been doing for the past 5 weeks or whatever it is, 4 weeks, whatever it is, that defense is going to ball out. Collaros is going to do just barely enough, or Strebler is going to throw 1 or 2 passes, and somehow
Play
the
action
Bombers are
at
going to.
that.
Yeah, exactly. But somehow the Bombers are going to pull another game out of their ass, and by the end of this week, they're going to be over 500.
Well,
I
I'll tell you
I
this.
love I love to hear the just the pain in Blake's voice when he has to say that.
You know
I
what,
honestly do love it.
Blake. You know what? I'm a quote Dominic Toretto from Fast and the Furious. I thought we were family.
We are family, but I can't. I can't pick the Riders
But
right
you gonna
now. I
choose the
can't.
ops though? You gonna go with the
Coach,
Yes.
coach,
ops?
coach, I can back him up after I just looked at a few pages here to scroll back a few weeks. He has been consistent with saying that he has picked the Riders. I believe 3 of the last 4 weeks he's picked them. So I can say
All
that
right,
to back him up.
all right, fine. Next.
Next is the Battle of Alberta once again to end the I guess trio of games on a Saturday. Calgary going to Edmonton this time. I think this is going to be a clean sweep. I'm going Edmonton. Shane is as well. I would think Blake, are you going Edmonton?
Yep.
That's a yes. Coach, it's all up to you. And if you're going with Calgary.
Hell no, I ain't going with Calgary.
Smart man. Smart man. Hey,
Shoot.
I love it. Even though I guess, they've kind of MBT obviously being at quarterback now, but they had obviously the 3 guys there with Trey Ford, Jarius, and Giroy. Coach has ties with Edmonton, so I guess I'm not too surprised with them. And just they've been fun to watch here the last few weeks. I believe in the last month of the season or whatever, they're the highest scoring offense in the CFL.
Mm-hmm.
And defensively, I know coaches kind of talked about it a lot, even premature from kind of my recognition from them. But their defense is starting to play decently football as well, and some young guys on there that I feel like in a few years that hopefully they're able to get there. Some of these reps in now and turn into something that maybe Edmonton's able to develop into some of these all-star caliber guys and just starting caliber type defensive players. So interested to see Edmonton's all around. That will end week 14's picks. A little bit quicker without Shane chiming in with all the stats and all his
Thank
little
God.
stats guy for us. But Coach, anything
Can
that
we do
comes to
this every
mind?
week?
Yeah, we could, I guess, and just leave Shane out. Hopefully he's not. Watch he's in the chat or something. And he's gonna put something in here. But all jokes aside, Shane, hope you're feeling better, buddy.
Get
Coach,
better, bud.
not to rush you out of here, but is there any final thoughts or anything that comes to mind for you? As we were talking actually off camera, side point, we'll talk about this a little bit actually now that we have some time. Hopefully everybody that's tuning in here on YouTube, Instagram was able to see your guys' reactions this weekend. I say your guys's. You're able to bring your little son in here this weekend. I believe the first game he was rocking no mic, and you could kind of hear a little few things here and there. He was wanting to chime in. And then Dad set him up with a mic for, I believe, the Saskatchewan Winnipeg game, if I'm not mistaken. How was that for you guys? And like I said, I recommend for anybody tuning in to go check out that. It was super wholesome and just good quality content as always from Coach Phil.
You know what? It was out of the blue, and I just asked him. I was like, "Do you want to do it?" He was like, "Sure." And first couple ones we did, he didn't have a mic, but then I found an old Guitar Hero mic.
That's hilarious.
And it was the Edmonton Calgary one, and it burst his little bubble, and he was in love with it. Oh man, he's a good kid, man. So hopefully, maybe see a little bit more, and I'm ready to do more with him. He's a good little wingman. He's a good little wingman.
I loved it. Blake, were you able to see it yet? I know you're busy and stuff like that, but I recommend if you haven't, buddy, go check that out. It was a
I
good
did.
time. I had a smile on my face.
I saw the little clip that Coach posted. I haven't seen the whole thing yet, though.
It was good, man. He was chiming in with all his little analysis and shit, and he whatever he wasn't agreeing with just Coach and stuff like that. It was funny. It was good, good time. Like I was saying off camera, I could tell it was the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But it was cool to see him make his little YouTube debut. I guess maybe one of these weeks we'll have to get him on the show, Coach. Let him give his picks maybe instead of Coach for one of these weeks. We love to have him on. I'm sure he's excited. I know he's the BC Lions fan, correct?
Yes, but he picked Winnipeg this past weekend to beat us, so he's gonna be on punishment for a little bit.
He's grounded, eh? But Coach or Blake, any final thoughts or questions for Coach before we get him out of here?
Yeah, the only thing I have to ask you, Coach, when you going to Regina again?
I will be up there, I think, for the BC one. I'm going to Toronto and Scambleton in October, so I'm making my East Coast debut.
Nice,
Nice.
nice. Love to hear it.
2 days back to back. I'm going to torture Scambleton, and I'm going to have a good time torturing Chad Kelly.
Love it. I hope that kid buys a ticket next year, like he said he was, and backs up his talk. I doubt it, but Coach, all jokes aside, thanks for joining us once again. Social medias are all in the description below. As always, like I said, Coach has the reactions. But Coach, is there anything that you're putting out this week?
Gonna be staying busy, man. We gonna get it done. We got the Banjo Bowl reaction coming up. That's always a good one. We're gonna stay on our grind and we're gonna keep doing our thing, man.
Awesome, Coach. Appreciate it so much, and we will see you next Wednesday.
See you
All
next
love,
Wednesday, yo.
Coach.
All love, brothers.
Later, Coach. All love. That was Coach Phil, as always, on a Wednesday night, joining us for his picks, news and notes, all the good stuff. Blake, can't believe it. It's 7 o'clock. How are we gonna end the show now? And I'm just kidding. And actually, I think
Yeah,
this is a good
right.
time to kind of combine a little bit of this show with a BC Lions preview, so we don't have to do one tomorrow because I'm gonna be doing a little bit of a different type video Thursday night. And then, as you guys can see, NFL football is back, baby. So I'm super excited to watch some football tomorrow. Kansas City and Baltimore kick off the season. So I don't want to be doing too much other than the one recording I have tomorrow night. So Blake and I probably wouldn't have been able to do a BC Lions preview.
I
So I
think
guess we
my family
talk.
would kill you if we did a preview tomorrow, too.
Why? What's tomorrow?
It's my birthday.
Oh, right. I forget it's your birthday. I thought, or no, you didn't have. Did you have a celebration? I thought when you got home or something, didn't you, or
Yeah,
no?
we did. We did on
Okay, that's
Sunday.
yeah, okay, that's when I thought because you said Marcia or whatever was coming, and for
Yeah.
some reason, I guess I should have wished I would have missed. I would have been a bad friend and co-host, so I didn't wish you happy birthday. But some reason, I guess that my mind clued in that that was your birthday had already passed. But
That's
um,
all good.
happy early birthday! What in a matter of
Thank
what is
you.
that,
Thank you.
5 hours or so?
Yeah, about that.
And we're the same age, right? You're turning 28,
I'm
27, sorry.
turning 27. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, 27. I always do that. I always like try to age myself even more. I know that we're the
What do
same
you
age
mean?
because
I want to go back to being a kid.
I know. I always try to like age myself even more. But I know because well, I should know because you're 97 though on your tattoo there.
Yeah.
We're both 97 babies. Um, as you guys can see, we have some time to fill, so we're kind of getting a little sidetracked. But
What? Gord's not ready yet?
no, let's get into our BC Lions small preview. Blake and I were gonna I actually didn't tell Blake, but Blake and I were gonna not do a BC Lions preview this week and just go with a post game show Friday night. Seeing as that I knew it was Blake's birthday, I knew let's not do it tomorrow. Let's do it tonight on the show. Shane's not going to be able to make it. We'll have some time afterwards. So it was all planned. Blake and I will go for maybe about 10 minutes here just to fill some time. Obviously, end the show with our BCFC picks. But wasn't going to do a show because it's a short week. You know, honest to God, we've talked. Probably you can't find too many more bigger Nathan Rourke supporters, but we've talked enough about Nathan Rourke. I'd love to just go see him perform on the field like he's been, or like he did on Saturday there, and like to see him just build on his performance. So, would have loved to have some football to talk about afterwards, which we will. But Blake, I think this does give us a good opportunity to talk about a few things. Um, I think, like I already mentioned earlier, just to give kind of, I guess, my like key to the game, if you want to call it that, or just why have I think confidence, a little bit more confidence in BC than Montreal is, as I mentioned, William Stanback and his ability to set the team up in good down and distance, keep them ahead of the chains, excuse me, and then being able to be a weapon out of the backfield, catching the ball and being able to punch it in on the ground. So I think William Stanback is going to be the key to this game on Friday and being able to dictate the outcome of this game. I think you need to be able to grind this one out, not allow Montreal's offense to be on the field. Maybe own time of possession, maybe 35 to 25, something like that, where you're on the field 10 minutes longer than the Montreal offense, and really just choke out that game. And I think it's going to be a close one either way. And hopefully the Lions are able to pull it off. But Blake, defensively, I guess that before I pass it over to you for kind of a key, I think is just you'll probably agree with me, but the effect of Matthew Betts, and that has to be felt, I think, from a game-to-game basis. Unfortunately, for Matthew Betts, kind of being dropped in here midway through the season, you know, this is the defense we have, and unfortunately, maybe not as I don't even want to say as good a quality as previous year, but not performing to the level of previous years. I feel like a guy like
Yep.
Matthew Betts can be an eraser of sorts, where he can get the pressure on the quarterback, not allowing the secondary to have to cover for so long. Can hopefully be a good run defender. I believe it was Matt Baker, one of the media. Nick, Matt, Julio, or Moj. I know that doesn't really help because it's four individuals, but we're mentioning that when Matthew Betts went down to the NFL, he didn't bother gaining weight. He played at the same weight, but he really dialed in his run defending side of playing defensive end, because obviously in the CFL, a lot more passing down, stuff like that. In the NFL, there's a lot of more run responsibility that you have to be in tune with. And I think hopefully he's able to translate that to the CFL game, take what he's learned in the NFL and the coaching and stuff like that, and bring it to the CFL. And I think if he's going to be able to be a valuable run defender, that's going to even add even more. And we can't downplay it anymore. We mentioned it on the post-game show after the Touchdown Pacific on Saturday. The emergence of Christian Covington in the last few games has been felt tenfold, and I think will help even more. Playing defensive tackle inside, I don't need him to get a ton of sacks, which I think it's crazy. Like it's been such a down year with sacks. I believe he's tied second. I know there's a bunch of guys at 5 and 4. I believe he has 4 or 3 sacks on the season,
That's
which would be second or
crazy.
third on the season. So not a lot of sacks league wide. That being said, he's still technically second in the league in sacks at the defensive tackle position. I don't need you to get sacks. I need you to be an impact defender in the run game. I need you to blow up the pocket, push the pocket in the pass game, make opposing quarterbacks feel your presence. It doesn't have to be with a sack. Like I said, if you push that right guard, left guard, whoever may be, center back into the quarterback's lap, he's not able to step into the balls as well or as comfortable as he's used to doing. That creates a presence. That's a factor in the game, whether it's shown on the stat sheet or not, or it's seen by a majority of the fans. It's probably not. So it's going to go downplayed a lot of the time, but those little things will be huge when it comes to the long-term success for the BC Lions this season. So Blake, don't mean to steal hopefully all of your thunder, but hopefully you're able to maybe think on the fly here of a few other thoughts for the game. But for me, William Stanback, the defensive line with Christian Covington and Matthew Betts. What are your thoughts on the game and any maybe keys offensively and defensively for BC this week?
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't have to do a three keys to the game, and now on Friday morning, you just did it all for me, Cole. No, but in all seriousness, I'm really interested to see how that secondary performs again. That rejigged secondary before touchdown Pacific, they were not good. Like let's call a spade a spade. They were very bad during that 5-game losing streak. There was multiple games in which there was multiple plays in those multiple games where the Lions seemingly forgot how to tackle. That all turned around in touchdown Pacific. I don't think I saw one missed tackle in that entire game. It was great to see from guys like Adrian Green, TJ Lee, Manny Ragumba. That rejigged secondary looked like it really worked. So I hope that that stays the same for Friday night. And the other thing that I'm going to look for on Friday night is how that offensive line performs. As the injury report came out today, who's available, who's not, it looks like Vernon Adams is on track to be the backup again. He practiced in full both days this week, and he's listed as available. A couple names that aren't going to be available, though, are Jarrell Broxton and I believe Tyler Packer. So you would think that Chris Slugger will come in for sure Most likely, the other man to come in is Andrew Pearson, but I'm really interested to see how that continuity is going to affect the offensive line and how much time they're going to give Nathan Rourke to find what looks, as we saw in Touchdown Pacific, like a rejuvenated Justin McInnis. Is Alex Hollins going to finally be able to cure those dropsies? Guys like Aiden Eberhardt, because as you and I both know, and even William Stanback, if the offensive line isn't doing their job, the quarterback isn't going to have any time to throw the ball, and the running back isn't going to have any holes to run through.
Sorry, folks. I said well said by Blake. Before I get into the offensive line, touched on the receivers there. We've been very critical of Alex Hollins over the last few weeks. Obviously, I would say last actually probably like 6 weeks with the drop issues, stuff like that. Obviously that comes when you're I believe, top three, top five paid receiver in the CFL. That being said, I don't know if you want to say okay is the right word to say, but it is somewhat, I don't want to say acceptable either. Somewhat, you're able to get away with it because of who you have on the team. Keon Hatcher was one of the best paid receivers in the CFL. He actually took a discount after his Achilles injury and uh, for lack of a better term, basically gave the team a little bit of money back, pretty much. And I think he's starting to round into form. Justin McInnis over 1,000 yards, leading the league in touchdowns and receiving yards. So not too worried about Justin. I think he's had a few quiet games, but he hasn't had quite the slump that Alex Collins has. And then Aiden Eberhardt has been just
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Cole, but
yeah, okay.
just so the folks know, Justin McInnis is dealing with a little bit of a nagging injury too. So before this back-to-back against Ottawa, that could have been some of the reason why his performance dropped off just a little bit, as you and I both saw him sort of limping around after
I was going to
Touchdown
say.
Pacific. He did say to us that he'd be good to go for Montreal, but he was limping around a little bit after Touchdown Pacific.
And I would even say a little bit more than a little bit too. Like he was you could tell he just played a football game, and having not played a professional football game, but having played decent, highly level football games, you don't feel it right away. So he is obviously battling through something. Some of the shots that you take throughout the game, you tend to feel that, maybe, a few hours after the game, the next morning for sure. But right away after the game, the way he was like, laboring out there, he's definitely battling through it, and is even more credit to him that he went out there and had a game that he was and able to get back on track. But as I was saying, Aiden Eberhardt is the model of consistency in that receiving core. Whenever he has the ball thrown his way, he comes down with the ball. He had a target there in the game, wasn't able to come down with it, but he got a pass interference drawn. Got his first touchdown, as you mentioned there earlier, Blake. And I think, like I said, whenever his number's called upon, he's doing his job. And then Javon Katoy, he's had, he's been battling through injuries, but I feel like he's kind of dropped some balls here in the last few weeks that we've seen him catch, and he was back to consistent, strong hands, catching some of those tight windows in the heavy traffic areas with Nathan Rourke putting some of those balls into some tight spots. He was able to hang on to some footballs, and I believe he was a yard short of having the opening touchdown of the game. Would have been nice for him and his confidence to probably build and get in the end zone. But Javon's another guy that's super selfless, doesn't care about his stats or anything like that. But I think you're able to mask or hide some of Alex Holland's struggles because of the receiving core around him and the weapons that we have on this team that are able to, pick up the slack when maybe one receiver's down. If say, we only had, Justin McInnis, Alex Hollins, and some other guys, Stanley Berryhill was still in the lineup, stuff like that, maybe it would be amplified even more. But I think with the healthy guys that we have in the receiving core, it's able to not be as big at holding the lines back. So offensive line, Blake. Glad you mentioned the injuries. Jarrell Broxton is going to be a tough one, left tackle for the BC Lions. Left the game, I believe, with a lower body knee injury. I don't know if it was officially listed as a knee injury, but a lower body injury, left tackle. And I personally didn't pay attention too much to David Neville when he filled in at left tackle. Now, David Neville is a draft pick by the BC Lions. has made the transition to playing offensive guard the last few years. I want to say the last year and then into this season. Now, I always thought that was a weird decision because one, he was drafted as an offensive tackle, and then he is. It's not so weird to see a tackle go inside or a guard go outside, Blake, but it's weird at the stature that he is. I believe he's 6'7", David Neville. So those guys that have to go inside, you have to kind of get like playing offensive line, Blake, I feel like it's like a big part of it is leverage, right? And getting lower than the next man and being able to have the leverage over him. At 6'7", David Neville's not winning a lot of those leverage battles inside. So I always thought it was kind of a tricky situation for him to have to go inside, having to bend a little bit more, get down a little bit lower, to try to win some of those leverage battles with some of those defensive tackles inside, where he's 6'7", 300 pounds going against a guy like Michael Johnson, who's 320 pounds, has 20 pounds on him, and is only maybe 6'3" or something like that, where he's just by his own stature is underneath him with that leverage and winning already. So was curious to see how he was going to transition in the guard. Hasn't been the best and easiest transition. Obviously, lost his job early in the season. Going back out to tackle, I really wasn't paying attention to him, but I believe it was Farhan Lalji mentioned that he was really paying attention to him from field level and mentioned that he had played very well. And I think something that attests to that is when you're not heard from, right? There was no holdings on him, there was no offsides, jumping the snap count, anything like that. And there was not many pressures on Nathan Work passing the ball all day. So I think a good enough effort now against Montreal is definitely a little bit of a different question, and for a longer period of time is even a bigger question, I think. So I'm curious to see how they perform. Obviously, we were teasing and pumping the tires of Chris Slugger there at Touchdown Pacific, talking about having to get him back in the starting lineup. We didn't mean that at the expense of Tyler Packer. I thought has been having himself a performing above expectations, and has obviously been a little bit more to the level maybe we thought the last few weeks. But considering I think we've really been, haven't heard from him or haven't had to hear from him, I guess is a better way to phrase it, for the previous 6 games or whatever he's been in the lineup is a great thing. So him coming out of the lineup for, I believe, concussion related type symptoms, I'm hoping it's going to
Yeah.
be Chris Slugger. Now, if it's not Chris Slugger, that means it's going to be Andrew Pearson. So that's not a bad thing either. Andrew Pearson, big locker room guy, just like Chris Slugger, veteran now in the CFL, knows his role in the team. That some days he might be inactive, other days he might be a starter, others he might be a backup that's dressed. So he knows his role very well. And as you've talked to him a few times in the previous weeks, he's been hungry and itching to get back in the lineup. So a guy that's very motivated, just like Chris Slugger, that I think to get the pads back on in a game type situation. Chris Slugger, I believe, coming over from Montreal, would probably be motivated to play against his former team. Where I would hope that this is not the situation is that they kick David Neville back into guard. They just signed a former NFLer, I believe Miami Dolphins offensive lineman here early in the week. I believe was signed to the practice roster. So I'm hoping that
Yeah, I was gonna
that
say. Sorry, I'll let you finish, Cole, but we missed that in news and notes. So there's one other signing that I wanted to talk about, but go ahead.
what was that, Blake? It's honestly all good, but what was the other signing? I can't remember.
It was
Oh,
Jalen Edwards
Jalen Cooper.
Cooper being
Yeah,
back.
right.
Yeah, so that was surprising because he was released at the end of training camp, if memory serves me correctly, and he was beat out by, as it was pointed out in Arrow Up episode 1, the training camp edition. He was quite frankly beat out by Ronald Kent Jr. and he signed with the Riders. Unfortunately, it didn't work out with the Riders, and now the Lions have decided to bring back Jalen Edwards Cooper.
So slight correction. We cut him at the end of last season, if you remember, Blake, and then he
Okay.
signed with the Riders. He got cut from the
Didn't he
Riders.
fail a physical or
Yes,
something?
yes. So the Riders separation wasn't 100% to do with performance. It was a injury issue that I believe that from now this is unofficial. This is not quoting them, but I believe had probably been either downplayed by Jalen Edwards Cooper in his camp for Saskatchewan to give him the contract that they did. I would imagine that they knew about the injury. Obviously, with BC, they probably had, assured Saskatchewan, yeah, we'll be ready to go by training camp. We're healthy, stuff like that. They get into training camp. Now, every player on the roster, once they report to training camp, has to complete a physical. If you don't, you're not on the team basically until you complete that physical. So Jalen Edwards Cooper took his physical, wasn't able to complete it due to a shoulder injury. Stuck around. I think the Riders had probably had hope that he was maybe going to get healthy. Ended up cutting Jalen Edwards Cooper there in the sometime in the offseason. Had spent some time on the free agency wire, and then the Lions picked him up. I believe they put him on the practice roster, and then I believe they officially, I think, signed him to the actual roster, I believe. So I'm actually curious, Blake. I'm glad you brought that up. If he's going to be maybe available in any sort of capacity this upcoming game, where I wonder because he obviously plays, the cornerback position. He doesn't really play much halfback inside, where there's been a little bit more movement inside of that halfback position with guys like Ronald Kent, TJ Lee coming in and out. Adrian Green, Patrice Renee, all sorts of guys coming in and out of those positions. Manny Rugamba now at corner. I think we've had pretty good level of corner play. Gary Peters, for my money, man, is the best corner in the CFL. That guy continues to lock it down on the boundary side of the field. I saw a stat from rewatching the game there, the Touchdown Pacific on the broadcast copy. His completion percentage when opposing quarterbacks target him in the last 2 years is 55%. So when opposing quarterbacks target him, it's basically 50-50. That's going to be incompletion or it's going to be complete, it might sound like not a good number, but that's fantastic. It's first in the CFL in the last 2 years. I believe it's more than 75 targets. So it's not just some guy that had 3 targets. He had 2 pass breakups and one completed on him. So he has a 66% completion percentage or whatever. Guys that have been on the field, guys that have been playing. Gary Peters locks it down, unlike any other in the CFL, and has been quietly doing his job. It goes quiet because the guys aren't targeting him, and guys aren't throwing the ball his way, and he doesn't get a lot of interception numbers or anything like that, so he's not able to pad those stats. But don't get it twisted, folks. Gary Peters is the best corner in the CFL, doing it right now. I don't think that's a hot take. I don't think that's a homer take. That's just honestly the cold hard truth, in my opinion. And on the other side, Shanti Evans, since he started the season, I believe, playing at some of the halfback position. Jordan Perryman obviously started the year, I think, on the outside. And then getting the transition to corner, I think he's played very well. He has a few interceptions, if I'm not mistaken, on the season, correct, Blake? And has been doing his job when called upon. So I'm curious to see if Jalen Edwards Cooper is available. Does he get back into the starting lineup? Does he have to maybe bide his time on the inactive? Maybe he has to stay on the practice roster, whatever it may be. But a nice depth piece to have. Injuries are going to happen, stuff like that. So hopefully he's able to be fully recovered by now. I would hope, considering he got cut in training camp and we're into week 14. I would hope that he's healthy, and this is going to be a move that hopefully pays off for the BC Lions. So not to get too much more on the Lions, Jay actually chimes in. Lenar Coleman, offensive lineman. I really hope that they're not going to try to transition another guy quickly. Not that it matters from the NFL, but a guy that's transitioning quickly into the offense and start him at offensive tackle. I hope they go with David Neville. It's on a short week. He's finished the game there last week. You just plug in Chris Slugger or Andrew Pearson. Whoever you don't plug in is that other extra offensive lineman. There's your 6 offensive linemen right there, and um, you don't try to put too much on this guy's plate right away. I don't know who other offensive linemen that are offensive tackles on the roster. Obviously, George Una, rookie offensive lineman, is on the roster and is healthy to go. But that being that he is a rookie, I don't see that they want to rush him on the field quite yet. I would think they're going to be quite content to. I think he's dressed in a few games this year, but just pretty much redshirt him his first year and build him into hopefully an offensive lineman that can be a starter here down the road. I think it's been warranted now with the play over the last few years. Same guys, personally like these guys, but I think it's time in the offseason we need to look in a different direction in a few positions on the offensive line, just for the sheer sake to switch things up, to hopefully try to upgrade this offensive line for whoever's at quarterback next year, to protect them. We don't want to have to deal with the situation of losing a Nathan Rourke in week 10, a Vernon Adams in week 6 again. So maybe it gets worse, maybe it gets better. let's try to upgrade in the offseason. I think George Una will be one of those pieces that'll be in contention to battle for starting position for years to come. So offensive line or offense talked about, defense talked about Blake. Um, Quickly, I guess Ryder Vargas, shout out to him, has been playing super well over the last 3 weeks or so.
On the specials.
People have been actually pretty critical. I don't know if you've seen that online, Blake, about Ryder Varga, but I don't know about you. I think he's been playing quite well considering still a younger player. I believe in his second year now in the CFL. Um, I think he's done very well. Have there been a few times he's got burnt in coverage, a few times he's missed tackles? Absolutely, but that's going to happen when the other guys on the other side are professionals. They lace him up to beat the guys on the opposite side just like we are, so or just like the Lions do. So that's going to happen. I think he's played super well for being thrown in this situation, playing will linebacker as well. I like what I've seen from Ryder Varga, and I think he's going to be a piece that can be once Ben Haladic and Josh Woods are back, he's probably going to be a special teams demon, having all his energy for special teams, being able to run down on all four phases of special teams, and I would think that's going to be his role for a long time. And if there's any sort of linebacking injury issues, he's able to obviously show that he's capable of filling in and playing pretty well. So Ryder Vargas, small shout
We,
out.
we talked.
Special teams. Before we get out of here,
Yeah,
Blake,
no,
sorry, was there anything about?
yeah, I was going to ask you on the special teams. Do you think that last week Carl Myers starting as punter had more to do with the grass field than anything else? Or do you think that Stephen Flintoff may have lost his job? As it was kind of weird. My uncle, who I actually sit with at the games, he mentioned to me before I even noticed anything, Meyer was handling the punting duties, but Flintoff was still kicking off.
Yeah, and so Flintoff. So I'm glad you actually mentioned this, and this might be a little bit of a rant. So I apologize for those that aren't special enthusiasts. But um, before we get to the punter, I guess small side note: sad to see Sean White miss a field goal, and for me his first field goal that he's actually missed this season. But that being said, we are going to start a new streak that Sean White's about to go on right now. And Mr. Automatic, I have all the confidence in the world that Sean White's going to be there for us when it matters down the stretch here. He's going to kick many big kicks for us for however long he's in BC Lions jersey in the playoffs as well. So no confidence loss there, but just disappointing. And lastly, before we get to punter, Terry Williams. I don't know how we didn't mention this. We did talk about
Oh, yeah.
the punt return, but Terry Williams, man, we gotta house that baby. We gotta get to the house on that one. I don't. Is it Dubois number 89 for the Ottawa Red Blacks? DK Metcalf him down. Did you see that,
Yeah,
Blake?
Marco Dubois.
Yeah, man, he DK Metcalf him
I
down.
did. I did see that.
He's probably like a
He was
good
like
five.
10 yards behind him.
He's like 6 inches taller too, man. It was incredible.
Like
Honestly, I didn't really like. I noticed it when it happened live, but I didn't notice how impressive it was until I watched the broadcast copy back, and I was like, he was like 7 or 8 yards behind him and hawked him down, man. Terry Williams is not a slow dude. It was impressive. But all jokes aside, Terry, we got to get you in the paint, brother. We got to get it. We got to get the touchdown for that one, special teams wise. But I don't know how I feel about this because we've seen this firsthand in this game, right? I have never to relate it to the NFL, Blake, which I never like to do, but this is I think the easiest way to do it for the Buffalo Bills on their 53-man roster, they have 10 offensive linemen available to them. On game days, they dress 8. So they dress their 5 starters, they dress a backup at center, a backup at guard, a backup at tackle. Now, usually that backup at center is like a guy that can play guard, tackle type stuff. The CFL, I guess I shouldn't say the CFL. The Lions only dress 6 offensive linemen on most weeks, and it stresses me the frick out, man. Because one,
Yeah, it's the reason
injuries.
the Riders had to go to Micah Johnson last week.
Yes, thank you. I was gonna say it stresses me out because one, injuries happen, and more than one injuries happen, and then two, we just saw the Riders have to do it with Micah Johnson, who I don't think it was detrimental to them because I think he played quite a bit of time there, at least the whole second half. I think did quite well. I think a majority of those big guys probably play offensive line as kids. But where are we going to before Micah Johnson, or before we talk about Micah Johnson?
The special teams and Carl Meyer and Stefan Flintoff.
Okay, sorry. With the roster flexibility, dressing a dressing two punters takes away a roster spot that I feel like could be an extra offensive lineman, could be an extra whatever it may be. I don't know how I feel about this because Flintoff, I guess, if you want to say, has struggled punting the last month or so is probably a fair statement. Now, that being said, you're not messing with Sean White's holder. Flintoff also has that responsibility. And then, as you mentioned, Flintoff doing the kickoff duties, which isn't too out of the normal, right? Which, one of your kickers is going to handle the kickoff duties. Predominantly, more often than not, it's usually your kicker that does, the kickoff and the field goal kicking. Your punter just does the punting. Now the thing for me is they dress basically five special teamers that do nothing but special teams, and where that the 4th and 5th guy come in is uh, Riley Pickett, who is a long snapper turned fullback, if you want to call it that, but he also splits times long snapping with Kyle Nielsen, who we saw come down from the NFL, number 47. They dress five specialists on game days, which is crazy. You see NFL teams do three. You see most CFL teams do three. So that's two extra roster spots on game days that could be an extra one, could be an offensive lineman, it could be a defensive lineman, it could be a linebacker, it could be whoever. But I think that's a interesting strategy. I don't necessarily agree. Now, am I going to be boisterous about it um until something goes wrong with it, or something happens? Probably not, because it's such a small detail. But who's to say we don't lose an offensive lineman or two, and we have to put freaking Josh Banks at like offensive guard or something like that? It's like what the hell are we doing here? That's just a situation. I feel like an extra offensive lineman versus a extra long snapper or an extra punter or whatever. I think you just have to go with. I actually honestly didn't think about the grass versus turf. That is a interesting thought because I think a majority of rugby pitches are played on grass, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Yeah, so maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. I'm not too much of a kicking expert. I'm interested to see if that happens again this week. But I'm glad you mentioned it, Blake. Quickly here, Jay just wants to ask a question, but he says, not to sound stupid, but can White punt as a last resort? As a
I
last resort,
believe so.
I'm sure he could punt. I'm sure there's some other guys that could probably punt as well. You've seen, you know, the famous one is Chad Ochocinco kicking an extra point in the NFL, but there was, I think Justin Reed from the Kansas City Chiefs had done some like kickoff stuff for the Chiefs and stuff like that. So there's athletes that I'm sure that are on the team that could step in last resort. It's not a stupid question. Can Sean White punt? Because he can. It's just he is getting up there now, so we've kind of seen him, like I was just talking about with the kickoff. Usually, you see your kicker more often than not do kickoffs, which Sean White has in the past. I think he honestly might have done it last year, or no, maybe not last year, but maybe his first year with the Lions, and that's I think a new thing that he hasn't done in the last few years. But legs starting to get a little bit, you know, I don't want to say weaker because he's Mr. Automatic. He ain't weak by any means, but starting to get not as far his range. I would think he could punt in a last resort situation. Now, could he punt for a considerable amount of time? I don't think that would be a smart idea. It would just burn out his leg and something he hasn't done in I think in a long time. So probably not a smart idea. Especially when you have a guy like Flintoff who's on the roster. He's Sean White's holder. You don't have to totally drop him from the roster. I just think Carl Myers you probably don't need unless Flintoff totally falls off a cliff punting. But YouTube user. Love the name. Actually, it's Gary. Actually, from Twitter. Actually, I love to see the Garys that tune in. I know he's diehard Lions fan. He
Jeremiah
says, hello.
Peters Sr.
Yes, yes. He says hello. Did Gary Carl Myers kick a ball yet for the Lions? He
He's
did in
punted. I
fact
don't think
punt.
he's kicked.
Yes, so he did in fact punt on Saturday. He hasn't attempted any field goals, which is Sean White's duty. And then kickoffs, as we just mentioned there, Gary Flintoff actually handles those. So he hasn't kicked, I guess, but he has punted, if that's what you want to call it. But same thing, different day, if that's what you want to call it. I'm interested to see if he stays up on the roster. Blake, that kind of ends our preview, if that's what you want to call it, for the BC Lions this week. As I mentioned, no BC Lions preview tomorrow to be uploaded. So that leaves one order of business left to do. BCFC week
No,
number 8. I
two,
can't
two
believe
orders.
it's week number 14 in the CFL, week number 8 in the BCFC, which is crazy to me, man. Um, love having the BCFC back, but I'll be honest, I can't wait to have a little bit of a break and not have to do a little bit of stuff with Raiders because it's a lot more than
Then
I
you
should say a lot
bargained
more than I
for.
signed up for, but just a little bit more of a workload than I kind of anticipated coming in the season. It's been great. It's been a lot of fun. I've had a great time doing it. It's just I can't wait to kind of take a deep breath
Breathe.
and relax. I feel like I literally do something on every single day, and just it's good, but it's a long time till November, my friend. I'll just say that right now, looking down the tunnel. But BCFC week number 8, 2 months into the BCFC season, we have a big matchup to kick off the weekend. Okanagan Sun traveling to your Langley Ram. If you're not, Blake, I recommend you getting out there. I know you're probably busy this weekend, but should be a good one. Who do you got and why?
Oh man, this one pains me to say, but I think the Sun are gonna stay undefeated. The Rams, I've been talking about this defense all year long. They're really good. You kind of saw that a few weeks ago when they were in Nanaimo. Again, last weekend when they, unfortunately for you, shut out your Vancouver Island Raiders. I believe in the last like 4 games combined, they've given up like 25 points or something crazy like that. But there's a but coming here. The only team that's better than them defensively is the Okanagan Sun. Like the Sun have given up, I believe it's 60 points in 6 games all year. The Rams have given up 69. And if you take away the game these two teams played against each other in week 1 up in Kelowna, I believe it'll be 47 for the Rams in 5 games. So quick math, that's almost 10 points a game. For the Sun, it's even lower. That's 45 points in 5 games. That's 9 points. So the law of averages says that Okanagan Sun defense is just a little bit better than the Langley Rams. I think the Rams, there was a game a couple of years ago, I want to say. I remember seeing a game that was like, it was the Cullen Cup actually, that I was at in 2021, I believe, the year the Rams won the Cullen Cup and went on to win the Canadian Bowl. The Cullen Cup finished like 10-8 or 11-8, and not a single touchdown was scored that entire game. All the points were on either rouges, safeties, or field goals. I think it's going to be very similar to that again. But as I said at the beginning, this pains me to say this. I'm going to take the Okanagan Sun to stay undefeated.
I am a little bit surprised. I thought Blake was going to go with the Langley Rams. I too am going to go with Okie. I think it's going to be a close one. I think a interesting factor is the addition of Gob Dang, former University of Calgary Dinos receiver, had committed to the University of British Columbia, or I guess had transferred to the University of British Columbia. I believe he's attending school on campus there, but isn't allowed to play for whatever reason. Not too sure. I don't have any official word on that, but he has signed with the Langley Rams here. Played against the BI Raiders last week. Got a touchdown. I think he's just getting up to speed in that offense and will be a big time threat Obviously, Terrell Jones is that number one receiver in that Langley Rams offense, and is, I think a guy that could hopefully turn some heads and maybe be one of those guys that get to look in a camp or two. I think he needs to put in a little bit more size, but a certified baller for sure in the BCFC. And if they can have a two-headed attack like that and a receiver, is going to help them out even more. But that being said, I think Okanagan's the best team in the BCFC right now, especially with that running back, Elon Noah, I believe is his name. Incredible guy, I believe, a guy from the States, up from the States, and has been just fantastic to watch here this season. And they have a good defense as well. So I think I'm going to go with Okie as well. Okie. Next one is going to be
just correction, Cole. Our man Jay chiming in on the chat. I was wrong. The score was even lower. It was 7-4 in that Cullen Cup.
Gross. Absolutely gross. But the next game I'm interested in.
It was a gross day, too. It was pouring rain. It didn't help the conditions. But, I mean, it's one of my great memories because the Rams won. But...
Yeah. Quick side note here. Gary asked another question. He says, is there a salary cap and are the Lions close to the cap? So, yes, there is a salary cap, Gary, but unlike
they're over it.
The NHL or the NFL, NBA, there's a soft cap. So it's, a hard cap in those other leagues where in the CFL you're able to you're able to get away with going over the cap. I believe actually the Lions went over the cap last season, and I believe we're the highest paid or the team that went over the cap the most last season. I think they went over the cap by like 82 grand or something like that. This year they're definitely going to be going over the cap. I'm interested to see what that final number looks like. Usually nothing happens too much, Gary, other than a fine to the team. You can lose a draft pick.
Yeah, I was going to say, I believe, depending on the final number.
You'd have to go over by like quite a bit. You'd have to like piss the league off quite a bit to lose a first round pick. I think they'd stick to just fining you until you it'd be like, okay, this is getting ridiculous. We're taking a draft pick from you guys. And I'm curious to see.
Maybe Jake can answer when the last time that happened. A draft pick was taken away.
Well, see, this is where I'm interested to. Small side note to get back on the BC Lions here. There's a couple guys in the chat, BC Lions fans. We're obviously Lions fans. I'm curious to see if BC's train of thought behind this is. I hate to say this, but one of Vernon Adams or Nathan Rourke is essentially gone by the end of the season, I would think. Or I guess a better way to say it is after the season. I would think at the bare minimum that will fetch you a first-round pick. That would mean you have an extra first-round pick. As Amar Doman maybe creeping in his mind that, you know what, we're going to have a first-round pick. Let's go over the cap and take that first-round pick because who cares? We got two. Is that probably his train of thought? Probably not. I'm curious. Is that maybe a little bit of, some strategy behind the scenes? I would think that's probably being chatted about, right? Like, be realistic. One or two of them are gone, and they're fetching a first-round pick at minimum, a first-round pick. So, maybe the Lions go over by a ton. And they get fined because it's, I believe, their second or third consecutive year of going over the cap. And maybe they lose a pick. So we'll see. Hopefully not. But to answer Gary's question, there is a salary cap. It's a soft one. And yes, the Lions are over the cap as of now, which is not a good thing. But, Blake, how many times have we said it, baby? Grey Cup or bust. Let's break the bank. We might as well.
I knew our man Jay would come clutch. He said it was the 2019 Montreal Alouettes the last time a team lost a draft pick.
Interesting. So it hasn't happened, it hasn't been that long since it's happened again. So maybe that's the Lions' train of thought. We will see. Back to the BCFC, Blake. Interested to hear where you're going on this one, buddy, because it's obviously your hated rival. I'm going to cut to the chase. I'm going to go with the Valley Huskers, not with a lot of confidence. I think PG is a competitive team. Now, they don't give me too much confidence, especially to pick them over Valley. But Valley doesn't give me really much confidence to back them. I'm just going to go with because they're the better team. And I also need, for VI Raiders purposes, the PG, almost called them the PG Huskers, the PG Kodiaks to lose. Prince George gets a victory here this weekend. They would move to have 2 victories on the year. No offense to Kamloops, but they play Kamloops twice to end the season. I would think that's 4 victories. The VI Raiders won't be able to catch them. They have an opportunity playing the Valley Huskers to catch them and leapfrog them, having the head-to-head against them, not playing PG anymore. So going for Valley, not confident in them, and I'm rooting for them to win, hopefully for my VI Raiders' sake. Who do you got, Blake, between Valley and PG?
I am also going to take the Valley Huskers. As you said, it kind of pains me to say that, but the Valley Huskers, both of these teams are coming off a bye. Both of these teams really embarrassed in their last game. Valley being embarrassed by the Rams in the Cascade Cup. I believe the final was 22-8. So the scoreline kind of flattered the Huskers a little bit. But PG lost to Kamloops their last time out. It was the Broncos' only win all season long. And we've talked about it. It sucks because Colton Mikel is on the Kamloops Broncos. We saw him up in training camp. He played a preseason game for the Lions. I feel bad for that kid, but the Broncos are the clear number 7 in the BCFC. If you can't beat them, I don't have any confidence that you're going to beat anyone else.
Free Colton Michael, for sure. I would think the Lions have kind of somewhat assured him that he's going to get a look next training camp. Doesn't matter if you go in 10, brother, which they most definitely they won't go in 10, I guess. 1-9, whatever it may be. But just a tough situation for Colton. I know he's probably grown. He's not probably he's grown up in Kamloops, playing with maybe a lot of his friends and stuff like that. Wanting to enjoy his time there. So not a lot of success on the field, but I guess not a lot of team success. Individual success, that dude's balling, and usually putting up a lot of good stats. I think it's been a quiet year from him so far, but it hasn't been the greatest offensive line and quarterback play for him this year. So last matchup of the weekend, VI Raiders, West Shore Rebels, rematch of the Battle of the Rock. I will cut to the chase, get your little smile off your face, Blake. I'm going West Shore. I imagine you are as well. Just to talk, I guess, a little bit about the Raiders. Um,
That
not
O
like
line still isn't healthy yet.
Yeah, well, I'm not disappointed in them. I think they've proved this year that they are much more competitive.
No,
But
absolutely.
they're just showing how young of a team they are in terms of like some of these mistakes in those closer games. I'm excited. I think this game will be closer. They haven't played it at home in like a month, and they've only played 2 games 2 games at home this year out of their 6 or whatever it is. So they're have I think it's like 3 or 4 home games to end the year here down the stretch. They had 2 close games with Oki and Langley at home, as you recall and as you remember, Blake. So I think they're going to be able to play better at home. Now that being said, West Shore is a good team. They're a deeper team, and I don't know if you know this, but Sadler Smith actually didn't play last week in Langley. They started their
I
backup
did
Brady
not know
Dornez.
that.
Yeah, so he actually fractured a finger on his throwing hand actually, and is actually a pretty significant one actually too. It's this finger. So it's this finger, which is like the one that has the most pressure on a football, as you can see, and it's probably
Yeah,
your most important, right? Because that's the last hand that touches the ball. If it was like a pinky, one of these 2 fingers, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. But considering it's that one, it's a pretty significant injury. That being said, I'm not gonna. Let me actually just check here. 1 second, Blake. I was gonna make sure that nobody's watching on Instagram from the team, but to not break too much news, but Sally's going to play this weekend. He's going to try to gut it out and see what he can do. I was at practice on Tuesday night. Obviously, he wasn't able to practice Tuesday night. His plans to go on Saturday. Will definitely added a much needed boost to the team. But I think you look back at last week's score, 40-0 with a backup quarterback. It's probably a little bit more understandable because I didn't know that either. They obviously played Saturday, same time as Touchdown Pacific, so I wasn't able to watch the game. Was able to watch it Sunday morning. Was like, the hell? Like, that's not Sadler. So I texted Coach Sean right away. I was like, what the hell's going on? He let me know what was happening. I was able to, like I said, get out of practice and see what was the situation. So interested to see if he's able to suit up and go, and I think be a much needed boost to the team. That being said, I don't think it'll matter in the bigger picture. I think West Shore will be able to get a victory. VI needs to pull off one upset down the road here. I think they have Langley once again, Valley, like I mentioned, and another game in there somewhere. I think it's the Kamloops or something like that. They need to get an upset. They need to beat Valley, and hopefully they can snag last seed in the playoffs down the stretch there. But I need some help. We're going to need some help if you're Raiders supporters. I actually see some other guys are chiming in here. I love it from Jay and Gary. He's got Kamloops beat. Oh, that's the last score. But Gary says PG 21-17. Love it.
I like it.
Chiming in, getting some predictions from the chat. Love to hear it, and expanding the BCFC viewership, hopefully. But Blake, a little tired. I know we're not doing Canada West picks, but we'll save those for a little bit of a teaser. Going to do a kind of a weekly, I guess, release video with the Canada West from now on, kind of like recapping last week's action, like a 30-minute video. Just like giving you basically last week's action, and then kind of talking about our picks that I'm releasing with Gord Randall from Crown Countdown U, Matt Young from Saskatoon CTV. Matt will be joining me on a weekly basis, Canada West TV sideline reporter, and then obviously Connor O'Neill from CFP. Recorded that, going to release that on Thursday nights. We will also be kind of every other week. Connor O'Neill will be joining us every other opposite week. A player from the conference will be joining us, hoping to finalize the player in time tonight. But as of now, small teaser, hoping to have A.K. Gusama, University of Manitoba Bison's receiver, on the show tomorrow. So should be a good time. Tune into that. As always, Thursday morning, we'll have our picks out with those guys in the morning. And then Thursday night, like I said, no CFL football, unfortunately, folks, but the NFL is back. I'm super excited for that, as you guys can see in my NFL fan. But had to wrap the CFL, Blake, as you see. I'm not gonna, now that NFL is starting, it doesn't mean CFL stops by any means. The train keeps on going. As I said, I feel super freaking like I'm underwater right now with like Tuesdays going to practice, Wednesdays the show, Thursdays getting ready for Canada West, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday basically watching the games, and Monday's kind of really being my only day off. But like I've said numerous times here on the show, when it's the off season, I'm going to miss these times and miss grinding. But Blake, that's going to do it for us here on the weekly show, buddy. As always, our social medias are in the description below. Blake, before we get out of here, any final thoughts for the people?
No, I'm just I'm excited. I didn't know, you hadn't told me yet that you were doing a sidebar Canada West. But to just very quickly, I will say that I'm excited to see what happens in the Canada West this week. There was a couple upsets last week. With all due respect to the University of Alberta, you can't really call them beating UBC an upset. They should have probably won the Hardy Cup last year. Of course, they didn't. UBC came back and won. But I'm interested to see how UBC responds against the University of Manitoba, who they lost to Regina last week, if I have that correctly, Cole.
So Manitoba beat Saskatchewan. Regina lost to Calgary. Regina beat Calgary. My apologies.
Right. So Manitoba's 1-0, UBC's 0-1, yes. And UBC is definitely not going to want to go to 0-2. So I'm really interested to see that matchup. In my opinion, that is the matchup of the week. And very quickly, as I will try and do from now until December, I will throw in our high school update. The New Westminster Hyaks will host the GW Graham Grizzlies for their first exhibition game against another BC team of the season on Friday night.
Oh, so are you gonna be tuning into the BC Lions game from the sideline then?
Yes.
Because obviously, are you Statman or play-by-play for the Hyaks? Stats. So Blake obviously on the staff with the team. Excited to hear about what happened Friday night, buddy. And those atmospheres are always a good time. I think the Hyaks have played one of the better atmospheres in terms of like Friday night football in the province. So lastly, Blake kind of brought it up there with Canada West. UBC was having a tough time. I'm going to hold up my giving away my who I picked for the game this week. As Blake said, the game of the week in the Canada West, in my opinion, I think everyone's opinion, Manitoba traveling out here to UBC, which Blake and I were able actually to be in attendance for last year's showdown, which was a very one-sided game. I think this is a much different matchup here coming into this game. I had some tough time. I was kind of chatting with the guys that we do the picks with, kind of who I was going back and forth with. After being able to watch the UBC and Alberta game, I have much more confidence in saying who I'm going to ride with this week, not discrediting the other team, but because I guess this might give it away, but watching the UBC Alberta game, it was 28-20 late in that fourth quarter. I believe the score ended up being, what was it?
42-28 Alberta.
42-28. So it looks like a 14-point game. Looked like a little bit more of a lopsided game than it actually was. UBC was actually up at the half 13-11 as well. Garrett Rooker threw for 375 yards as well. We're able to do a lot offensively. Where my concern comes in, Braden Stubbs, University of Manitoba running back, had over 100 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, as well as their backup running back. I believe it's Noah Anderson for the University of Manitoba, had a rushing touchdown as well, was able to be effective. But what was it here? University of Alberta, Matthew Patterson, friend of the show, had him on the show last year. 19 carries, 117 yards, 6.2 yards per carry. And his backup running back, I believe it's Osheneby, number 22, had 8 carries, 73 yards, 9.1 yards per carry, and a touchdown versus Saskatchewan defense. That needs to be fixed for UBC if they want to beat Manitoba this week. Having those 2 running backs coming in, I think is going to be a tall task. And then that offense with Jackson Tuchinski at quarterback, A.K. Gassama at receiver, and Deshaun Lanier as well. I think that's going to be a tough task for UBC to slow them down, but gives me a little bit more hope that they were in a tight ball game. That score wasn't truly an indicator of how close that game was or how that went. So glad you mentioned that, Blake. Glad you mentioned the high school action as well. Not that I'm connected. I guess not that I'm connected. Not that I'm coaching with them anymore. I'm still connected, still getting a little bit of updates from the ND program, but they don't kick off quite yet. AA action, I don't think. I guess they're actually AAA now. I speak like we're still playing in AA, but the AAA Pacific Northwest Conference, I don't believe has as many teams, so I don't think they kick off till I think next week. So interested to see. I forgot about high school action starting now as well. Hoping to get out maybe on Friday night or something like that. John Barsby, ND, whatever it may be, just to consume us even more football. I don't know if that's possible at this point, to be honest. But Blake, that'll do it for the show here, buddy. Like, comment, subscribe as always. Smash like, smash subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you guys get notified every time we go live. Comment down below. Let us know what you guys liked in the show, what you guys would like to see in the show, all that sort of good stuff. And enjoy this week's action. We will see you guys next Wednesday.